everyone, welcome back to the world of cinematics. I hope you've got your blood pumping because it better be by the end of this. We're talking. That is awkward.
Okay, try again.
All right, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Oh, I'm just an idiot. I muted my laptop. Sorry, everybody.
Okay, all I'm hearing now is that you
Oops.
guys can hear me, Robert can't, and for that I'm going to beat him up, which is fitting for this topic. We're talking about some of our favorite action scenes from movies. We've taken out Star Wars and we've taken out comic books. Those deserve episodes of their own. But for the meantime, we're going to talk about some of our favorite action scenes, not only why we like them, but what makes a good action scene and how these scenes go into it. It's a lot to get into, and I know I'm going to have to listen a lot so that I can know all the ways I need to beat up Robert in the future.
There we go.
But I guess I'll start us off right off the top with the hallway fight from Inception. I don't know what it is. Apparently hallway fights are just the greatest location to have any fight.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Old Boy, you got some great ones in Daredevils, have some great comic book movie fight scenes there. But I think my favorite one is definitely the Inception hallway fight scene. And what I really want to highlight here is how the filmmaking itself does a great job of showing us something we haven't seen before in a fight scene and showing this great narrative all built around something that is such a simple trick to do filmmaking wise and also plays into something that really could only happen in this movie. For those of you who don't know, a lot of Inception is talking about going inside dreams. And when you're in a dream, time goes slower. Not like it feels like it's slow motion, but 5-minute dream will actually be, oh, you were asleep for 8 hours. And so as things outside the world happen to you, if it doesn't wake you up, maybe you'll still feel it in the dream. Like if you get a little water on your face, maybe it'll start raining in the dream. You know, that happens to us all the time in our dreams. Now, what happens if you're in a car that starts rolling over? The world will become weightless. And then instead of being weightless, you're tumbling all over the world. And so what did they do? They built a hallway set and they had it rotate along with a camera that would rotate along it. And so the hallway looked like it's standing still as these people fighting in it are rolling up around the ceiling and walls of the fight. It's beautiful, it's glorious, but beyond being something we've never seen before, you never forget, oh, these two people, for the sake of the plot, are fighting over this gun. And you're watching all this spectacular stuff, and you never forget which one of them is going to get the gun, which one of them is going to end this as soon as possible. Because in a dream, I mean, you can punch each other all you want. Nothing really much is going to happen. Shoot someone, those are real consequences, at least in Inception, at least in this fight. And so the way they're tumbling around, the filmmaking, the long shot, as you just track what's going on, it's incredible. They fall into a room, they finally get the gun, and it's perfectly timed so that the final gunshot, or not the final gunshot, the gunshot that ends the fight also happens as they stop rolling outside in the real world. Not the real world, another level up in the dream. And so for me, I think it's a great example of showing what filmmaking, those simple things with building that set and holding the long take, can illustrate something in the world, give us something creative and engaging, and help tell a little story in that fight.
Absolutely. And something that just always comes across my mind with Hans Zimmer works with science fiction or fantasy. He writes that, he gets a script that he likes, sometimes it's brother helping him with it. And I just can't help but think of the practical guys that look at the script and say, dang it. Because, it's something new and challenging. And it's very true. It's a concept we've seen many times before, like in 2001, The Space Odyssey, there's a rotating part of the shuttle. There's also, I can't remember, it wasn't Daddy Long Legs, but it's another older film where they have him tap dancing on the ceiling, but it's just a rotating set. But to apply that, something that's been done even in the 1960s, and then use it for action, you don't see that as often. And it was something that I remember Stefan saying at one point, he was like, I love zero gravity fights. I wish they would do more of them, especially after watching that scene. That was something that I also enjoyed, is that just seeing it, thinking about it conceptually and then seeing it brought to life, it's a really cool thing to see.
Just a minor correction that I hope doesn't start a fight here on screen. Christopher Nolan. You said Hans Zimmer.
Did I say Hans Zimmer?
You said Hans Zimmer and his brother.
Hans Zimmer and his brother.
I thought you were going to talk about the score. I love the score there. I'm just like, wait, why is he talking? What's going on?
Let the fight begin.
Hans Zimmer, and I'm sure he directed all those films.
Oh, for sure. Christopher Nolan's a hack.
I think Christopher Nolan's really good at doing creative action.
Mhm.
Not so much hand to hand. Sometimes he surprises me, but most of the time, it's more about technique than it is about style. For instance, the chaos of Batman Begins, when he first appears as Batman, you can't really tell what's going on. I think that's partly intentional. But like I said, he's very good at creative action, like this rotating set, this zero gravity, and it's also done at Tenet, where you show somebody fighting with somebody going forward in time and the other going back in time, and then seeing the reverse of that. So he's very good at making action very kinetic and very unique and it has his stamp on it. Kinetic, unique action is the staple of Christopher Nolan, just as pigeons are and doves for John Woo. So and dual wielding pistols.
This was kind of his first and one of his very few good hand-to-hand fight scenes. And I think what actually makes it succeed, where he fails so often with that, is it's not constantly editing. It's just the one take for most of it. So you're able to actually see what's going on. And that actually, it's not that, oh, we're using the editing to hide our weaknesses. Those long takes, it allows you to see the great stuff instead of when you try to hide the bad stuff, it hides everything and it's just a mess.
Yeah, I really like the practicality of all his Christopher Nolan's action scenes, especially the Dark Knight Rises. When you do that plane.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, where they tear the plane in half. That's really cool. You know, and this is another good example of that. I did like this part of the movie. Inception overall really warps with your mind and stuff, but they do use a lot of CGI in this movie.
Oh yeah,
definitely, with the whole Doctor Strange building around and stuff, which they did it first, so I guess Doctor Strange is talking to them. But yeah, this action seems pretty sweet. I enjoyed it a lot.
Inception remains my favorite Christopher Nolan film, just because it has enough of the weirdness of Nolan and it's mixed up timelines and things, but also his creativity as well as his action and his casting. I don't know, something about this film all comes together. I remember the names of side characters like Arthur and Eames, which is a big deal because he usually has a lot of characters and they can get muddled together.
You, British white guy in a suit,
right?
Have his characters.
And your hair is combed back. Which combed back hair guy are we watching today? But overall, I just really enjoyed the creativity and the concept that there. It's interesting because most of us would say, oh, let's do a video game. We said no, let's do the subconscious. Let's do dream world and play around in there. And that to me it's a super cool movie. So those are some of my thoughts. Robert, do you have any thoughts on Inception?
Specifically that scene?
Yeah.
Not really. You guys pretty much said most of it. I love the fact that it was just this giant thing they decided to build, and some engineer had to be like, "You want me to do what?"
Also, props to Joseph Gordon-Levitt for actually doing that fight.
Yeah, that's true. It always sells it more when an actor's actually doing his own stuff, but that doesn't mean get rid of stuntmen. They are needed.
No.
Yeah, we're not advocating getting rid of stunt doubles and
it's like practical effects versus CGI. When you can do practical, go for it. But there's absolutely times when you need to use CGI. When you can use an actor to do their own stunts, please do it. But there's also times where it needs to be a stunt person.
Yeah. Another thing that's cool about this is it's a countdown. You have one section where the guy's in the van, and you have Arthur, and he's got to do his thing, and then you got during the third level snow. Right? Yeah. So everyone has a ticking clock and a countdown for getting things done, and so it just adds to it that this guy's waiting for this guy, and they all have to sync up properly, otherwise
Mhm.
they'll mess up the mission, ruin everything they're trying to do. So
Yeah.
I think that adds to the suspense, specifically with the zero gravity, because it's like he's got to kill that dream defense guy quick, or he's going to mess things up.
Yeah, it's true. Because everything he does will affect the levels below.
Mhm. Yeah, got a lot of people counting on him.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Cool scene.
Good stuff.
All right, we want to move on to our next topic.
Yeah, that's me.
Hmm.
So I just to start out, I've only seen one James Bond film, and it's Casino Royale, and it was introduced to me by Jet. And the opening sequences, at least the opening action sequence, is what we're talking about here today. And I was just, when I first saw the film, I was super impressed with it because it was made in 2006, and it looks like it could have been made today. It's held up so well in the cinematography and the action. And part of that is the practicality. So James Bond is basically running and chasing this individual that he's, he wants to take out, but he's struggling to catch him because this guy is in real life a parkour expert. But it shows that specifically for the characterization of Bond, because we all know Bond, he either talks like this, or he's just swirling in champagne, or using a magic gadget, or doing all this weird kooky stuff that reminds me of Batman from the 60s sometimes a little more serious. But this Bond, his characterization, first it shows he's not going to use a gadget to catch this guy. He's not going to pull out his umbrella. It's not going to spin and lift him in the air like Mary Poppins to catch this guy. And he's also a Bond that's very steely. He's not this sort of suave Bond. He's very steely and focused Bond. Like he has an objective, he goes forward and he goes and fulfills the objective, or dies trying. So and the fact that this guy is doing all these wonderful parkour, exhibiting his parkour skills and acrobatics, and Bond is just running through walls and things like that just to catch this guy. And he even, he goes inside of an embassy to get this guy, and he's attacking these soldiers in an embassy because it's like it shows you that jurisdiction doesn't matter to Bond. The borders don't matter to Bond. If he's asked by his Royal Majesty or whatever, or His Majesty's government to do something, he's going to do it, and he's going to get away with it too. Because what ends up happening is he's surrounded, and he pushes this guy who's been chasing the construction, chasing off rooftops. He pushes the guy to them, implying, okay, I surrender. But then he shoots the guy, and then he blows up a thing of gasoline and escapes. And they're like, if I was the guys at the embassy, I'd be like, what the heck was that? Who are you? And that's part of the thing about this Bond is he has the mystery, he has the competence, he can hold his own, and he is the special gadget, and he is what's special about Bond. It's not the gadgets, it's not necessarily the sex appeal or anything like that. It's he himself is a living weapon, and it very much echoes at the time the trend with Jason Bourne and moving things forward in a more grounded way and making the main character highly competent.
Yeah. I like that Bond too. Actually, out of all the Bonds I've seen from the new ones, that one's my favorite. I haven't seen the newest one.
It's good. I think you'd like it. Like I know some people it's their favorite. For me, it's my middle favorite of the 5, but I still really like
A glowing endorsement.
it.
Yeah, no. Part of the reason is because of this opening action scene. It just seemed to be like, we're gonna make this really cool and really long action sequence, kind of like a Mission Impossible sequence. So it was kind of cool to see that. I'm not sure if it came before or after the Mission Impossible movies. Well, I know it came
After some, before others.
Yeah,
They, I think at the same time as 3.
Roughly, yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
3.
I would say this is
Let me
better
look
than
that
the
up.
third Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah.
And I definitely love the third Mission Impossible.
Mm.
You know, something. Second, you gotta watch out.
It's definitely better than 6.
Yes.
I think my favorite thing about this fight scene is how it characterizes James Bond as not just someone who is ultra competent, but also someone who his failings are not his inability to do something, but how he does it. He's a blunt object. That's why he's running in and shooting up an embassy instead of like calling someone like, hey, I need a favor, we need to get this guy out of here. He's the guy who, instead of, the parkour guy is running and taking all these flying leaps to descend from a building. He just gets in one of those elevator things and just shoots it repeatedly until it falls and brings him down. Not knowing, it could ricochet and kill someone. I don't know. I just got to get the guy. It shows, one, he's not your granddad, he's James Bond, but it also plays into the story of, you moron, look at all the damage you did, crap. You screwed us all over, but you also have to keep going, up your game. So it's not, you're not good enough, you're going about it the wrong way. So it tells you a lot about the character, it works into the plot, it works into the themes of the story. I love it.
So, disclaimer, I'm not a huge fan of James Bond in general. That said, I did like this parkour chase. I did love the elements where he would have a problem and he would find a way to go around it, through it, whatever it took to get it. If you're looking for a Terminator type James Bond, this is definitely the film for you. And I think that I agree with everything that was said as far as cinematography, the motion, and it's something we'll talk about a little bit later, but there's structure to this chase as well. It has very much an opening, middle, and end, and each part gets harder than the previous. And I appreciate that. I think that's what makes it so memorable is, it starts off with basic just running and then climbing and then, oh, I've got to get through this embassy, which is super illegal no matter what you do. It's basically an act of war, but he still does it. And so I find that very interesting as far as character development, as well as just telling the overall story within the story. So I very much give it a double thumbs up. I think it's very well done.
Yeah.
It's I think a good comparison is if you didn't quite enjoy the characterization of Batman, for instance, in The Batman, because it didn't feel like, let's say, the Batman that you were expecting or something. What this does, as well as James Bond and Casino Royale show, this is them in their early years. Batman's not quite the symbol of hope yet. James Bond is not quite as diplomatic as he could be. He's not quite as persuasive as he could be, other than the persuasion of thieves, And he's learning, as Jed said, to step up his game. And same thing with Batman. He's learning to be inspirational instead of just terrifying to everybody. And that's something that's very cool. Is sometimes with an established character, you just got to pull back. If you're doing the early years, not to just make, oh, this is Bond, or this is Batman. You just pull back and say, how did he get to be Bond? How did he get to be Batman? What was the journey to get there? And that's part of the characterization that you're able to utilize in matches and things like this.
That's true, because Batman and Bond, these two examples, they're doing the right thing by trying to get these bad guys. But, get bad guys off the streets and people will be safe. But in the process of getting these baddies, they're making people very unsafe.
Yeah.
So they're kind of not very, good at the job yet.
They're kind of reckless.
Yeah.
And that's something we brought up in our Batman reviews. When he's chasing the Penguin, it's cool to watch, but then you look at all the damage and you're like, you could have been a little bit more careful about that. Was it really worth all that damage? And the same thing with Bond. He did a lot of damage just to catch this one guy. And Batman literally does the same thing. So.
Now, Robert, we were talking a bit before this. You said that you have seen Casino Royale, but it's been a long time. You haven't seen, or you don't remember this parkour scene at all, right?
Yeah, no, like I said, I think I came in towards the end of the movie.
Okay, I'm going to pitch you on, this is what happens in the middle of the fight. My hope is that After hearing this, you will want to watch the movie, and so will the people in our audience. So in the middle of the fight, after a lot of fighting and climbing up, it gets to they're at a construction site, and they've both climbed this giant crane that's like 60 feet in the air, all of which they actually did practically. The one guy who's being chased makes it to the top first, sees he's, oh my gosh, he's still coming after him. I have nowhere else to go, pulls out a pistol and just unloads a clip. So Bond is hiding behind like the slats of the crane as he's climbing up. The guy runs out, Bond gets up to the top. What does the guy do? He just chucks the pistol at it. Bond catches it, chucks it right back and hits him in the face. So he falls. And so it's, oh crap, we're falling. We're 60 feet up in the air on this giant crane. How do we get down? How do we escape from each other? Or how do I catch the guy? How do I kill the guy? It's insane. It feels very, Jason Bourne, very John Wick, and it's incredible to see how each problem is addressed and solved.
Ooh, I do like the sound of that. I think that was the picture I showed on YouTube.
Oh,
It
good.
was them on a crane scene fighting. I was trying to look for a scene. I'm like, oh, this looks like the guy.
Yep.
Let's throw this in here. Cool. Yeah, I'll probably. Is it on HBO? Where can we watch this?
It's not. I don't know. I own it on Amazon. It's not really streaming anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think it's streaming. You might have to rent it on YouTube or something.
Okay, I can do that. Sounds good enough. You guys recommend it?
Yeah, you have to see it at least once. I mean, like you said, the only scene you remember is the rope scene. So
Yeah.
that is a scene that sticks with you, and if you only can endure it once in your life, I understand.
Not my
Right.
style.
Move on to our next topic.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So the next one is mine, and I chose Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. It's the fifth one. It's the motorcycle chase. It really ends with the motorcycle chase, but it begins really with him. The action really begins with him jumping into the water to steal the save file drive that they're trying to get, so they can do whatever they need to do for the mission, the impossible mission. And
Impossible.
impossible. And so it starts out as like kind of like he's on a timer. He's got to go down there. He's got to get this drive out before he runs out of oxygen in his lungs. He doesn't have any oxygen tank or anything like that. So right off the bat, there's some it's tense, And as far as all the major Mission Impossible things, like that's not the coolest one to me, but just what it leads to is I just love it all together. Because right after that, he makes it out, he gets the drive, and the girl that they're working with, they don't know if they can trust her or not, but they trust her for now. She brings him back from the dead. He's dying. He just ran out of oxygen, and then she proceeds to steal the drive and get on a motorcycle and drive off. And then right off the bat, Tom Cruise just gets up and says, "Where'd she go? Where'd she go?" And he's like barely got any breath. I just like that he doesn't just start crying like some oh, I loved her. She was my only one. He just
How could this happen to me?
Yeah. He just gets in the car. He just goes right after her. He runs into cars. He's like, you see, the funny thing about this, we just talked about how collateral damage was kind of a big thing. In this, they kind of do it. It's like, it's cool. It's more about how cool it is than about what people they might be hurting.
Or hurting themselves.
So it turns into a car motorcycle chase, and the bad guys proceed to chase her as well. And they're all on like 12 motorcycles. So it turns into this big motorcycle car chase where they're all chasing this one girl, but they're all trying to kill each other at the same time. And there's just some flipping cars around. One of my favorite scenes is they're driving down this like narrow alleyway, and Tom Cruise is in this car, and these two motorcycles get on the side of him, on his left and right side, and he pulls the e-brake and does a spin, which smashes the two cars or two motorcycles with the front and back of this car. He smashes them up against the walls. And I just love that, and the sound design is so cool. It's like, and it's just so cool. And then they eventually flip the car, and they take out a motorcycle, bad guy motorcycle, and then Tom Cruise jumps on a motorcycle, and this is like Act 3 of this fight. So you go from the underwater to the car chase, and then now we're on the freeway, all on motorcycles, chasing this one girl. And you know, it was really Tom Cruise doing this on the freeway. Obviously, they CG'd most of the cars, I believe. So, you know, he wasn't actually driving between all those cars. But you could see, it's just, I think it's so cool. We get to get close-ups of Tom Cruise without a helmet on, as dangerous as that is. You know, but it's just so cool to actually see him going that fast on the freeway on a motorcycle. And this part of the action scene turns into a really like any little slip up, you're dead. Because they're going, who knows, hundreds of miles an hour, maybe not hundreds, but 120 miles an hour on the freeway. And if you hit a rock that's a little too big, you're dead. So it's really tense and it's just really awesome. And I do think the ending was kind of lame, but I don't think it ruins it because it looked cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, she stands out in the middle of the road because he doesn't want to kill her. He just slams on the brakes, which makes him fall off his motorcycle. And I like that he just doesn't fall off and just roll 2 times. He like the motorcycle goes off the cliff and blows up, and he's like rolling and he's really hurt. It's not just like other movies where they just go from 70 to 0 over 3 rolls.
Red, we're looking at you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a very superb. It's kind of like how I like the Battle of Pelennor Fields. It just goes from one thing to the next, and they're all great. So that's my opinion.
One of my favorite things about that fight scene is the subjective nature of it. Like the Inception hallway scene, it's very objective. Instead of putting you in Arthur's shoes, you just, let's take a step back and witness the glory, the spectacle of this. But with this, you feel out of breath when he's, oh my gosh, I can't breathe anymore, even though you're breathing at home on your comfy couch. It's just, you're totally fine. But oh my gosh, she can't breathe. What's going on? He's gonna drown. And then the second he's out, it's just, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm dying. Oh, but you feel that desperation. Oh, we have to get it back. We have to get it back. And that whole time, you feel that same drive and desperation that he does. You feel every hit. You feel just as tired. It's, those later Mission Impossible movies just do a great job with putting you as an audience member who's safe and sound into those extremely dangerous situations. You feel everything, and I love it.
Yes, and Simon Pegg is hilarious in this because he's in the first part of the chase, obviously. And it was a trailer line, but I still love that they kept it. It's very much the you have your seatbelt on. You're asking me that now, and they flip the Jeep over and they land. And Simon Pegg's character totally is knocked out for a few seconds there. Tom Cruise doesn't have a chance to do that. The other humorous aspect is when he drives past Jeremy Renner and Luthor, and they kind of just a little wave at each other. So there's so many elements to this chasing in general that yes, you have this anxiety, yes, you have the thrill, but you also have some humor, which is really hard to manage in some of these fights because it'll be a throwback line that you've heard a bazillion times, like, oh, they should have been watching ahead, or don't lose your head, or something along those lines. But no, they don't do any of that. And when they do, like the seatbelt joke, it's very much really, you're asking me that as we're flipping this car over, and so it's pretty fun stuff. I enjoy it overall. I think it is a really well done chase. I do love that. I don't think it was planned, but Tom Cruise totally tears up a part of his knee as he's going a bazillion miles per hour, and it's consistent for the rest of the shooting as well. I don't think that was planned. I think he actually did tear his pant leg there, so because he just got a little too close to that gravel.
Very tight turn it took.
Yes.
There's always a scene that sticks with you from this franchise. First one is the second one is probably the motorcycles colliding.
Yes.
And that's how we feel
Yes.
about film, generally speaking.
Yes.
It's a bit of a wreck. And then the third one is just probably his wife being unmasked.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one is definitely climbing the tower
Mhm.
and then looking behind and seeing the sandstorm.
Yes.
This one is definitely the bike for me. other people might go with the being underwater scene, but for me, it was always the bike scene, just going down as fast as you possibly can and doing that really low turn that we've all talked about. You know, there's a stunt in every film that you remember, like, well, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Did they really do that? It looks pretty real to me, and that's the one for me. And even the airplane at the beginning of this,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of good ones in this film, but I think just the difference between being strapped to an airplane, which would be exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. You know, I don't know that the skill, like anybody can be strapped against the wheel to a plane, but not everybody can drive at that speed and turn at that intensity and pull it off without killing themselves or severely injuring themselves. But Tom Cruise does it, and that's why it's called Tom Cruise, because he can cruise through those stunts like crazy. Or it's because it's his last name.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there, Robert?
Yeah, two thoughts. First off, I don't know what you're talking about, Jed. Every time I see movies where they hold their breath underwater, I tend to hold my breath too, because I'm like, can you really? Can you really? And the other note is
Actually did. He held his breath for like 5 minutes underwater.
ooh, yeah, no thanks, no thanks. Although I do tend to do that sometimes. I'm like, really? So I'll rewind it.
Yeah.
And I start laughing at myself because I'm an idiot. But the second part, Brendan was talking about how if he hits a rock, he's dead. It's funny enough, I think it was this movie that he actually had a chip fly up and hit him right in the stomach, and it actually embedded itself right there during the scene.
I think it hit the rib, didn't it?
Yeah.
The rib stopped.
Yeah. The rib stopped it from actually going all the way through. But I got to give props to Tom Cruise. That man, he will do almost anything, except they don't allow him to fly, even though he has a pilot's license.
Hey, he's going
To be fair, though, it is a military class jet that they were going to have fly.
F-16.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've only really seen one Mission Impossible movie, and that was it was Skyfall? What was the one that we watched? Fallout. It was Fallout. Skyfall's James Bond, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Shows how much I know about these two franchises.
Hey, Fallout, it also had a pretty fantastic motorcycle chase scene.
Yes, it did.
It did. It did. I had when I was looking up pictures for it, I was like, which one is it? Oh, I have to type in Rogue. Okay.
You got the right one.
Woohoo! Yeah, I enjoy the Mission Impossible movie that I seen. I need to watch the other ones. I think I watched another one with you guys, but I don't remember what it was.
It was probably 5 if it was at school here.
That was the 5th one, yeah.
That's the first time I saw it.
Okay, yeah. The hard part is when I watch movies down there. Is it's after I came down from like 5 hours of driving.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about it. I appreciate his dedication. The movies are fun.
Dedication. What do we have coming up next?
Ooh, this one's mine. John Wick 3, the knife shop scene. So that tasted that 10 times fast with a dry mouth. Knife shop scene. So this scene in particular, it does kind of what Aaron was talking about with the good like mix between seriousness and comedy within the fight. Because John Wick's going against a bunch of these guys. I mean, this is the third one where everyone's out to come get him. He has a bounty on his head, right? If I remember correctly, it's till the end where he gets
7 million at the beginning of the movie, 14 million by the end.
That's right. Yeah, so he has his bounty. Everyone's coming after him. Everyone and their dog, or their cat, or their grandma. Point is, someone's trying to kill him at every corner. So here he is in this knife shop, and he's fighting. And these guys, they just realize, oh, we're in a store full of weapons. So they start breaking glass and using it. I think it's a great use of props, because they're using all these things. And what's great about it too is, unlike some of these like major superhero movies, not everything is landing their hit. Like when he grabs all the throwing knives, starts throwing it at them, you'll see that like the guy's blocking, but none of the knives are sticking. They're like bouncing off of him, because right now John's just trying to throw as much as he can at these guys. And it's just a lot of fun too, because like you get some funny scenes where John's on the ground and the guy throws a knife right in between his legs. He looks down at it, looks back at him all freaked out. But that, and along with the cuts that they do within the film or within the scene, kind of builds up the intensity. Like there's weapons everywhere and he could die at any second.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about all the thoughts I got for it.
Perfect. No, I have to agree. Is there's good chances of humor, and it's not the typical humor you see in action films these days. Whereas it's funny because of the circumstance. It's not because somebody points it out. It's more of, oh, I throw this knife in between your legs and I barely just missed. It's like, okay, and it's almost a laugh of relief, like, ooh, that was close, you know. But he doesn't have to say that. Oh, that was close. That's what other action type films or comedies would do, is, you know, mention how close it was to get his genitals cut off. And something else I do appreciate is that it escalates because he's at this point where he doesn't have a weapon. He has to make his own gun, and which only allows him to get one shot off, and then he has to continue to use these weapons around him, using his environment, things like that, which is something you don't really get to see, because how often do you have an action hero actually in a weapons, you know, part of a museum or shop or whatever it is, and be proficient at it? Because generally you might see something like The Mummy Returns, where Rick O'Connell is using a weapon, a bladed weapon, which he wouldn't be very comfortable with. He's more used to guns, knives, but no, he's using more of a melee weapon. And he's okay with it, but he's not as proficient as, say, John Wick with knives and axes and everything else. So it's cool to see someone that we have been building up since the first film as being this boogeyman, this master assassin, and we get to see, yeah, he actually is a master of his art because he's able to use anything that's around him as a weapon.
And not to mention that they keep you in the moment every single second. It's like, oh yeah, he's about to die. Oh yeah, he's definitely going to get hit. He's going to get cut here. And after seeing all the other injuries he's gotten, it's like it could happen at any second. He's not going to get hurt at all. It's going to happen. And I kind of, along with that sense of humor thing, Brendan has kind of taught me that people's reactions are hilarious. I know Brendan will do something to get a reaction on someone and he'll just laugh at you. So, play Elden Ring with me and him. You'll find that out pretty quick. Just kidding. But in that scene, like, so there's a few moments where just John's face says it all. You don't need to say anything because it's just funny.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing, you know, going into John Wick 3, the first two John Wick movies were so good, but I kind of had this sense of, what more can they do? You know, guy who shoots and is good at forms of fighting. I mean, what else is there? Well, they can have him headshot a guy with a horse, for one.
Yeah.
But, you know, all these crazy things. This one scene has more variety in it than like the other two movies combined. And they were already very diverse in their terms of action. Because he starts off with, oh, crap, they're coming. I got to assemble this gun out of all these random parts. I only have time for one bullet. Boom. Okay, crap. You know, hand-to-hand fisticuffs. We're surrounded by knives. Okay, I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna stab you. Oh, you're far away. I need to throw the knives. Oh, okay. I'm taking the knife from you and I'm stabbing it into you. Oh, hatchet. Throw it across the room. It has every sort of thing you could possibly imagine with just bladed weapons in a tight space, one person versus everyone. It has so much variety, so much creativity, and I'm to the point where, you know, John Wick 4, I don't know what else they can do, but I know they're going to find something and it's going to be spectacular.
Headshots them with a plane.
Yes, with a plane.
Yes.
Yes.
In space.
In space.
I don't know how he did it, but he brought down Starlink.
I only have two things for this one. I really like the part where a guy are facing each other down, and they look around and realize it's weapons, so they start breaking, open the cases to grab weapons, throw at each other, and try to kill each other. The other thing that I appreciate in general with the franchise is that the goons, the red shirts, the stormtroopers, whatever you want to call them, are the most fearless
Yeah.
antagonists of all time, because there's like a pile of bodies everywhere he goes, and they still pursue him and will fight him to the death. And I just really like that these guys are not cowards. They don't just run away from John Wick. I mean, they're stupid for being brave, but the fact that they are brave at all, that they're pretty competent actually a lot of the time. He's just more competent than every one of them put together. Is something that I appreciate, and I appreciate the scene because I guess they do have the strength of numbers until you're the last guy standing. Oh, well.
Right?
Yeah, it's like these guys were like Will Smith in Pirates 1.
You mean Will Turner?
Oh,
What? Fresh Prince of Caribbean?
Fresh Prince of Caribbean.
No, in the part where he's like, I practice with them hours a day or whatever,
Yeah.
3 hours a day. It's like that's who these guys are. They practice with these things. They're like very proficient with these weapons. So that's what I thought of. Like, oh, we never see a whole lot of movies where they do that. And I was like, only one I can think of is Pirates of the Caribbean. Except they're all kind of like Will Turner. They all know how to use these weapons.
Yeah.
And it is a very cool device.
Well, and it makes sense canonically as well, because in the first film, he's dealing with thugs, which are going to be good at some things, but not on the same level he is. And then the next one, they are thugs, but they are paid to protect the leader of assassins, essentially. And then this one, these are outright the assassins that these leaders hire. So you can see that with good storytelling, that these characters are developed to be better than the previous iteration. Because if you had the Russian mafia guys doing this in their first film, then it's like, yeah, you want to buy it. Where do you go from there? You have these regular thugs fighting proficiently with all these weapons. You're not going to buy that at all. So I think that's what makes it so great is with each film, they find a way to up the ante, but in a way that makes sense. And I really appreciate it. And it's the same thing with all the fights that John Wick does. But this scene in particular does a great job showing that.
Maybe John Wick 4 will take on Texas.
Yeah, maybe he takes on Texas.
Now that's going to be the hardest challenge of all. Can you imagine the trailer for that? I want like a Tropic Thunder trailer for John Wick does it again. Aaron, you made a really good point because I never really pieced that together because they do it so well. That it really is like they build up John Wick as Baba Yaga. He is an assassin, and all the mafias. I mean, they don't have assassins of their own. It's an organization, and then it goes up another level, and then when it gets to that final level, it's like, okay, these guys really are dangerous, but they're not Baba Yaga dangerous.
Yeah, it's just good world telling. World building, world telling. I'm not sure if that's a phrase, but it will be now.
It's on the internet. It shall forever be remembered.
It's the best kind of world building. It's the world building that tells part of the story.
Exactly. But it doesn't have to get too deep into it because these films in general are very surface level. You don't have to be a super genius. You don't have to have read Lord of the Rings to understand what's going on. It's very simple, very plain, in your face, and that's why people like it.
Yeah, they're not deep. They're simple, but incredibly well executed.
Yes. But do we have anything else to say about this? I think we made some good points.
Good.
So
Watching it hurts. It's painful.
it is very painful for
Close my eyes.
it's
I almost wanted to switch that out with something from Nobody. I'm not gonna lie, but this fit that.
The scene from Nobody.
Oh, that's art.
Yeah. I almost wanted to switch over like to do Nobody, but this was already on the list and I was too lazy to switch it over.
Yeah. No, I do like that bus scene. But going back to more PG level violence here, and speaking of world building, the one that I decided to go with was based on the likes of Errol Flynn. Like Sir Ian McKellen has done this, and surprisingly, Johnny Depp. Yes, we're talking about sword fighting, and in particular, the duelists being Inigo Montoya and Wesley. Wrong Wesley. But I wanted to talk about their fight on the Cliffs of Insanity. And in particular, something that I really appreciate, because we could talk about the choreography, which is stellar, and you know, you don't find that too often with sword fights these days. In fact, you don't see much sword fighting in general. But what I would like to focus on is the banter. Now, so just a quick definition between banter and quip. A quip is when you make more of a smart aleck remark, where banter is when you are both engaged in the joke or the conversation. And what makes this fight so memorable to me, even when I was 8 years old, when I first saw it, is just the ability to banter between each other. In fact, I remember immediately after watching this, going with my sister Laurel, and we did the same kind of fight scene as best as we could remember. And we would say, "Why are you smiling?" "Oh, because I know something you don't know." "What?" "I am not left-handed." And we loved that. We thought it was hilarious. And you know, there's other bits in there. You know, who are you? After he does the spin over, which totally has nothing to do with the fight. It's just it looked cool, and it gave us that wonderful set of lines, Nolan of consequence, and it stays with you because that's how the whole entire story is written. Is that there's good banter, and this scene really shows that because up until that point, it's a pretty serious movie. You know, Princess has been captured, her loved one is dead at sea, and there doesn't appear to be a hero. There's this strange man chasing them, and we don't know if he's good, if he's bad. But then suddenly we find out not only is he really strong and persistent, but he's actually really fun. And so you get all these elements, and then later, of course, you discover it is Wesley. But up to that point, especially if you're a young kid, you don't know who this guy is. You know, you just know he's good at what he does and that he's really funny. And so you kind of root for him, but you're not sure if you should. And so there's a lot of elements that I could continue to talk about, but
my favorite thing about the banter in this scene is how, you know, we talked about, you know, how different fight scenes will do a lot of characterization. This banter, it's not just funny for the sake of being funny. Everything Wesley does, it's always super polite, super unperturbed. None of this, it doesn't bother me. I could do this in my sleep. "Oh, you want to do this? Oh, of course, of course. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't tell you who I am." It's very like, if I wasn't watching them in a fight scene, I'd half expect them to be like, "Oh, you know, we're having an intellectual conversation at a coffee shop." He's so, this is beneath me, not in terms of I would never stoop to it, but it's beneath me in terms of I don't need to worry about this. Whereas Inigo, he's engaged. You're intriguing. "Oh, thank you. I love this. You're funny. Oh my gosh, how'd you do that? Please be merciful." It shows a lot of his range, which then makes Wesley look even more impressive. When it's like, none of these crazy things affect me at all. And so you learn a lot about Wesley. You learn a lot about Inigo, and then that ending. It shows that, you know, Wesley is a great purveyor of art, and it shows that Inigo, even though he's tired, he has the weight of all, you know, his revenge mission after all these years. Yes, he wants revenge more than anything else, but he's also so tired. It's just, please make it quick. Just, no, I would never do that, but can't have you following me, so. So it shows a lot about their characters in a way you wouldn't notice as the audience. You just think, cool fight, funny jokes, and afterwards you're like, oh wow, character depth.
absolutely. And it shows the differences between their character motivations.
Mhm.
If you were to sum up, what is The Princess Bride really about? Love, true love. And I could keep going, but I'll let somebody else speak.
Yeah, and then there's revenge, of course, vengeance for Montoya. You know, and when we were talking about doing the Princess Bride battle, I assumed we were talking about the Inigo Montoya versus the Six-Finger Man. But you know, this one's great as well, and it is kind of better in some ways, in action ways. But that Inigo Montoya versus the Six-Finger Man, that gets you. Even though it's like kind of cheesy.
I want my father back. Yeah, it's great.
You know, but like, why did the 16-year man just stab him while he was falling over 3 times? Just, you know, but you know, it's just really, it's really well acted. I think as kind of cheesy it is, as it is. But jumping what?
I was just gonna say, just to add to that, because of what we said, it's because of the motivation for him to learn to fight that we discover in this first fight that builds on that scene as well. So you know, they're very important. I would say
that later scene doesn't have the impact. without dispersal.
Exactly. It's very
Yeah.
good at showing, especially Inigo's further progression.
It's,
in the
yeah,
story.
it's very good storytelling because before they even fight, he tells them about the whole 6-finger man. Like, can I see your right hand? And he shows him. He's like, why did you need to see my right hand? He's like, well, I'm looking for this guy who killed my father. You know, and I think Wesley remembers that. He's like, you know, this guy's a good guy. And I think that's why part of the reason they kill him. Because he's like, you know, he deserves to get that, you know, just like I deserve to get buttercup. So it, like you said, it's really good at characterization of these guys. And it's really enjoyable. And it's a good way to start a movie that is PG.
Yeah.
Still having pretty decent action.
Good, the things that I like about this fight in particular is first that it endures the characters to you. Like when you watch whatever the outcome, you're like, I don't want either of these guys to die. No, I like Inigo. It turns out he has a little more depth, and that's even shown earlier with his banter with Andre. And it's the same thing with this mysterious guy in the mask. Like, this guy's insanely charming. I don't want him, and he's very driven. Like he sails all night, chasing by himself. Then he rock climbs by himself, or at least he holds on to the. Well, he climbs the rope, and then he's holding on to the wall by himself, and then he beats Inigo in a sword fight. He chokes out Andre the Giant, and then he beats a criminal mastermind in that game of Wick. You know, and this is part of the start of showing how Wesley's one of the greatest studs of all time because he does all those things, plus kills Ronan of unusual size, and gets through the fire swamp. All of that in one day. It's like, you did that all in one day? What? And so some of us are just having trouble getting out of bed. But he's so competent, and Inigo is so likable. They're both so likable, and it has a very good reflection of the past and introducing people to swashbuckling, which I feel is a genre that a lot of the times people don't know how to do it nowadays. A good example of doing it, Pirates of the Caribbean, many of the films, specifically the first one, the duel between Will Turner and Jack Sparrow, it kind of mirrors this duel. This duel sort of sets the gold standard for what a swashbuckling fight and banter thing should be, where you have the charm, where you have the skill, where you also have the characterization and learn about people here and what they stand for. And you can have a duel without somebody getting stabbed and dying. And they did that in Pirates as well, because by the end of the film, they're working together. Same thing with Princess Bride.
Oh my gosh. We should have talked about Pirates.
Any thoughts, Robert?
Besides the fact that after watching this movie as a kid, I was like, Dread Pirate Roberts, that's so cool. Has nothing to do with the Roberts part, but his getup. His getup's so cool. But one thing I would like to point out is the fact that this is definitely a gentleman's fight versus absolute brute force of trying to kill you kind of fight. And I feel like you see that with Andre the Giant as well, because he could easily just smash his head in like the Mountain did to Pedro Pascal, rip. But in this case, he didn't. He didn't bother. He was just like, I feel like it'd be rude to just throw this rock at you. How about we wrestle? And like there's no actual hostility in either of these fights, especially with Inigo. And then you see it later on that kind of benefits Wesley in the future, which I think is great. And then everyone gets what they want. That's it. That's all I got.
No, I think that sums it up perfectly. Do we have any final thoughts on any of these, or?
I like fight scenes.
I like fight scenes.
Tell us your favorite fight scenes, and if you want us to talk about them. If we've seen it, then we'll talk about it. If we haven't seen it, see it, and then we'll talk about it.
I like it. And also, for next week, are we gonna be talking about the TV show fights?
Yep, we're breaking down some of our favorite action scenes in television next week. So get to binge watching and be ready for us.
And on top of that, I think unless we have anything else, you guys got anything else you want to say? Go check out Pretzels. Go check out Pretzels. You forgot you changed the title. Pretzels on Webtoons, and you start promoting Aaron's stuff. So go check that out. Aaron, where else can you find you?
Yeah, I would say you can find it on Facebook under Our Family Ghouls comics. You can find it also on DeviantArt. It's also called Pretzels. There is some fight scenes that I do add in some of the later panels. So if you do like that, or if you think I could do something better with those fight scenes, do let me know, and I will be continuing the story a little bit later on. Currently, I'm working on another project called Toonla, which includes some spoofs or tunes that didn't make it to the final cut of the cartoon world as we know it, and specifically about Brucey Bat, a boxing bat that has to live in this world known as Toonla. So be ready for that as well.
All right, so go check those out, and please like, share, subscribe, watch our other videos, and if you can, please support us. We'll be able to get better equipment, be able to do more videos, more shows, more little spin-offs, and follow us on Twitter @ofcinematics. I think that's it, right? Is that all we got? Are we closing out? Is your time to close?
Closing time. Can't sing any more of that. We'll get copyright stricken.
Don't you dare! All right, we will see you guys next week at 7 o'clock or 7:30.
We'll see. 7 o'clock for now.
Bye.
Bye.